Hi friends, welcome back for this week's installment of the contemplative practices we are learning to carry us through our Lenten journey. This week's practices revolve around the use of a labyrinth. Whether large or small, just like every other contemplative practice we have tested out so far this season, a labyrinth is a tool for prayer and meditation. It's just a way of stilling our minds and moving our bodies and spirits into a receptive position or state so that we're better able to hear from God and better able to be present to God's presence around us. Though a labyrinth might look like a maze, it is not a maze. It's a little bit different in that the idea behind a maze is for it to be tricky, to have dead ends and wrong turns and have to find your way out of it. But as cheesy as it might sound, the labyrinth is not something that you need to find your way through. It is a way to help find yourself and to help find God. So there is only one way in and one way out. No tricks or dead ends. And this is helpful in our spiritual practice because it means you don't have to think or make decisions while you are using a labyrinth about which way to go next. You can just keep following the path ahead of you. The labyrinth is an ancient symbol that has been found for thousands and thousands of years across many different cultures. And it is one that we use in spiritual practice because it stands in many ways as a metaphor for our life and our spiritual journey, in that while there is only one way forward, there are many twists and turns along the way, and we're not always sure or able to see or anticipate where the path will take us next. There are lots of different patterns for labyrinths that we can find around the world and through different cultures, or just different preferences in one place. You can see here there are most labyrinths are a round shape. There are some that are very simple, like this one. There are some that are more square or triangular in their patterns. And probably the one that is most famous or that you will see most frequently is this pattern that is in the Chartres Cathedral in France. And this is the pattern that you have with you in your packet right now, and that is now in the floor of the fellowship hall at Faith Lutheran. Labyrinths also come in a lot of different sizes. So some are very large, like the one here in the cathedral or in the church at Faith Lutheran. They're big enough to walk on and have many different people at the same time. And some of them are small, like the ones that you have in your packets, or even smaller and can be handheld. Rather than walking on them, we trace them with our fingers. There are several different approaches that you can take to using a labyrinth, whether walking or a finger labyrinth. One is to use it as a practice of unburdening ourselves. If you're finding yourself particularly stressed or anxious or worried, you may choose to use the labyrinth as a way of setting those things down. So on your way into the labyrinth, you might carry those burdens in prayer and sharing the burden and worry with God. Then when you reach the center, you make the decision to drop that burden and leave your worry there in the center, and then make the path back out of the labyrinth, knowing that you have entrusted God with the things that were wearing you down. One way to symbolize this as you're using the labyrinth is to hold a rock or something heavy in your hand and set it down once you reach the center, to really signal, even within a tactile way and within your body, the setting down of the things that we carry in our hearts and in our spirits. Another option for how to approach a labyrinth is simply one of illumination. So we might have a question or might be seeking wisdom about a particular thing that's happening in our lives. And we carry that question with us while we are walking into the labyrinth. We pause at the center of the labyrinth and wait to hear from God, or wait for a nudge of the Spirit that it's time to leave. And then as we are leaving the labyrinth, we carry with us the question of what might be next, or what steps we take from there. The other approach to a labyrinth is simply one of stillness and meditation and basking in the presence of God around you. And in that one, there is no intention or question that you need to set before you begin, simply that you are there to be in the presence of God and be prepared to relish in it as you find it. Whatever your intention, here are the steps for for practicing the labyrinth, remembering that there is really no right or wrong way to share in this practice, as with all of the others that we're doing, that the point is really to have the intention of sharing time with the divine and finding a grounded and centered place within yourself to hear from God. So first, as we are using the labyrinth, whether you are walking and taking steps, or as those who are from at home using the finger labyrinth, you want to find a comfortable position in a quiet place where you won't be disturbed. Take a few deep breaths before you begin, pausing your finger at the opening within your labyrinth, and just making sure that you have taken a few breaths to center yourself before you begin. Some places will recommend that you use your non-dominant hand as the one that traces the way through the labyrinth, because there's something that happens in our brains that helps us balance as we are using our non-dominant hand and prepares our bodies and our minds for greater stillness. You can use whichever hand you prefer. But after you have taken a few breaths, you're going to trace the path with your finger toward the center of the labyrinth. You're going to move at a natural pace, and it's okay if you speed up or slow down at different places along the journey. You're just not wanting to think too much about how quickly you're moving, but remembering that the goal is not to get to the center and then back out again, that the real juice of this practice is in the journeying and not in the beginning or the end. So you're going to trace your finger through the different paths, winding around the labyrinth. Once your finger reaches the center, just leave it there for a while. Take a few moments or a few slow breaths before you begin your journey back out to the beginning. And then again, take your finger and trace the path all the way through the winding, twisting, and turning of the labyrinth. And as you reach the opening once again, where you first started your journey, pause your finger briefly and offer a prayer of gratitude for the time that you have spent and for the way that God has met you in this practice before removing your hand completely. And that's it. You have had the experience of using a prayer labyrinth. If you'd like, you could journal about that experience and some of the same ways that you journaled about your experiences last week, but it really is that simple. I hope that you are finding at least some of these new practices that we are experimenting with through our Lenten journey to be useful and fruitful in your own spiritual life. And I hope that you will come back again next week to find out about our next contemplative practice. Peace.